Guys, welcome back to a new episode of the Banner Riders podcast, episode 84, and of course we have the grand final breakdown to take a look at, probably some more talking points rather than a breakdown of the game itself. We'll also be taking a look at a few trade rumours and the trade breakdown before an upcoming really big off-season for a lot of clubs. So let's roll the intro and get straight into it. And then Rankin from the pocket, don't tell me, Isaac Rankin!
Yeah.
He's just got the license for a brothel.
Well, I think Gather Round's going to be more than just AFL this next season.
It's at the handle at the back, Nick Dankos to get the pies home! He's done it! So my brother is joining me for this episode of the podcast, and you didn't really get to see much of the grand final, did you?
No.
God, I feel so envious of you right now. So we'll get into the grand final in a little bit, but yeah, another poor loss for Sydney in the grand final, and another poor grand final as well. It's really annoying when we get these, because I mean, for someone who's a neutral supporter, like you want at least a good grand final. I think that's what everyone really wants when they're watching it.
Yeah.
If you're a neutral supporter, and I understand why people wanted the Lions to win, because obviously they were the underdogs, and you know, last year as well, they were heartbroken by Collingwood. But yeah, it was a really disappointing performance from Sydney in the end. We'll get into that in a sec. But let's just go through a couple of news stories. Probably the big one to come out from today, we're recording this on Monday, is the new appointment of the West Coast Eagles. The new coach is Andrew McWalter. So how do you feel about that one?
It'll be interesting how he goes. Obviously, he was the caretaker coach at the end of last year.
Yeah, for Richmond.
So... And he seems like he's already tried to poach some players already from him.
Yeah, well, we'll get more into that in the trade rumours. But yeah, obviously Liam Baker and Jack Graham have elected to go to West Coast. So I'm a little bit indifferent on it. I was a bit surprised by it. And I really hope they didn't just pick him to hopefully get a couple of players. Hopefully they do have a reason to actually, like he has actually got some attributes. Because I thought Stephen King would have got the job, to be honest. I thought he was a little bit more qualified, but... nonetheless, I think hopefully everything's all good with Andrew McWalter getting the job. And I just hope they didn't pick him purely because a couple of players would follow him. Yeah. I just hope that wasn't the case.
I hope they're not doing it. They know that it's going to be a long road. They don't think it's going to be a quick fix, just bringing him in. Oh, well, they've already got Harley Reid. All right, well, okay, then, yeah.
Because I think West Coast, if you compare every single team's best 10 players in the comp, West Coast probably fare okay in that sort of factor. I think they have a very good core of good players or whatever. But as soon as they hit from their 13th best player on their list, it drops so much. There is not much depth in the West Coast group, and I think that's where they're going to really drop off. I think that's where they drop off throughout the last season or through the season, was because they didn't have depth to go to if they had any issues. If they got injuries, they were lucky this year that their injury list was pretty good.
Yeah.
But obviously in years gone past, they have not had much there. And the thing is as well, even though they've had to play other players, they haven't really made an impact in the team.
No.
When they've came in, so I think that I do like Andrew I don't mind Andrew McWalter's appointment. I just hope they haven't picked him just to get a couple of players over the line.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that's really going to work out for them too much. I think Liam Baker, Jack Graham, they will be good inclusions for them, but they need a bunch more depth. And the fact is that obviously Jack Graham will go as a free agent, so that's fine. But Liam Baker's going to cost a bit.
Yeah.
So hopefully they don't throw too much on him, because I still think they need to hit the draft hard, West Coast, this year.
Yeah.
But we'll have to wait and see on that front. Now, another news story as well was finally we've got revealed who won the Gary Ayres medal. Of course, the best finals player. It was Lachie Neale. He won. For some reason in the grand final, they get votes of 1.5 or something. I don't really understand. They get their votes 1.5 extra points or something. It's something weird. So Lachie Neale finished on top with 26.5. It's just very weird. Isaac Heaney finished second with 20 votes. Will Ashcroft with the 18.5, John Newcomb and Dane Zorko with 15. And then, very interesting, Callum Archie, what a final series he had, 12.5 votes. So, great performance from them. Lachie Neale, well-deserved. He's definitely building a bit of a resume now. Everyone thinks of Lachie Neale, you think, he's just an accumulator, but he is, he's going to be going down now as an all-time great. A dual Brownlow medalist, a premiership player, a captain, premiership captain, multiple All-Australians. I think we have it here, actually. So he's a premiership player, premiership captain, two-time Brownlow medalist, a Lee Matthews Trophy winner. Do you know what that is? That's not the Brisbane Best and Fairest, I don't think. Actually, no, I think it is, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, one Coaches Association Player of the Year, 4-time All-Australian, a Merritt Murray medalist. I don't know what that is. A Doug medalist. I think that's the Fremantle Best and Fairest, 2 times. Marcus Ashcroft medalist. That's a 2 times. I think that's the Q Clash medal. And then obviously the Brisbane captain. So he's building quite a resume. And I mean, what was it last year? People were like, oh, he didn't even deserve to win the Brownlow. Now all of a sudden he's just built a very nice little resume. I mean, he was very close to a Norm Smith as well.
Yeah. So yeah, and he's came out half to the game. You could just see him how injured he really was.
Yeah, I think he said that he felt something snap in the last quarter. But he's like, I'm going back out there.
Even though, Fags is like, you sure you want to go back out? He's like, yep.
Yeah,
I want to finish this
I would
game.
have been too.
Yeah, I would have been like, yeah. And like, I think Cam Rayner also late in the game, he made sure he was on the opposite side of the field at full flank. So, and he looked at the bench. He's like, yeah, I'm not going to the bench.
Yeah.
There's no way. Yeah, once you're on the field you want to be there for the last moment.
Yeah.
On the field.
I mean, to be fair, I don't mind. I think the players on the bench, they always go to them first. Like
Yeah.
on a grand final, so I wouldn't have minded that. But great performance from him and Lachie Neale. And yeah, I mean, right now, I mean, I know, like I said, like no one really talks about Lachie Neale as being one of the best players in the comp. I feel like he gets put down the order a bit, but he's definitely up there now. I mean, not that he wasn't before, but you know, being a premiership player does definitely elevate your status. But speaking of that, Will Ashcroft, what a player this guy's been. Obviously, last year he went out with an ACL in round 19 last year and missed out on the grand final, and maybe he was the difference last year. Who the hell knows? This guy this year came back late in the season. Since then, they only lost, I think, 2 games, and that was that 2-game period just before the finals. And this guy is going to be an absolute star. I think when you prove yourself in finals, you just get your everyone's got their eyes on you, and he was just brilliant. So looking at it, he's the youngest ever Norm Smith medalist. He also, and this is a big one, he is a joint BRF medalist, which is the Boundary Riders Finals medal. He obviously was equal that, guys, so that's obviously very important. And I think he doesn't get the credit that he deserves.
No, I think he's only been in the game for 2 years, and he's won a Norm Smith. And
He's the youngest ever Norm Smith medalist.
Youngest ever Norm Smith medalist. The fact is that his reputation just soared through the roof in this final series in a second year. Yeah, it's amazing how good this kid could be.
Yeah, I know Collingwood fans will hate this, but I think he's definitely going to be. I mean, I think the comparison of Nick Dacos and Harley Reid shouldn't be the comparison, because I think they're 2 different players. Ashcroft and Dacos should be the comparison, in my opinion, that people should be looking at. And I know this could be a big call. I know maybe a bit recency bias, but I think Will Ashcroft will be a better player. I know that's a big call, but I think if this guy was playing at Carlton, he'd be talked about as much as Dacos, if not more. Like, you see every single time Dacos is on a fucking game in Channel 7. Oh my god, he ate a chip. That was the most smoothest eating of a chip I've ever seen in my life from Nick Dacos. He is so great. Yeah. Like, I mean, again, like, I'm not saying that he's not a bad player. I think he's one of the best players in the comp right now. He's only 20 years old, Nick Dacos. Yeah. But I think Ashcroft is up there. If not, I think he could be better than him in the very near future. I think that's a comparison. I mean, we're privileged as fans to get to watch these guys for the next fucking 10 years. Yeah. Well, knock on wood, they don't get injured. But I mean, it's pretty hard to compare them both. I mean, if you let's say you pick one of the draft, Port Adelaide, you had Will Ashcroft and Nick Dacos, and they can't take a father-son. Who would you be picking? I'd be picking Will Ashcroft at this moment.
Yeah, I probably would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this guy has not even played 25 games in his career.
Yeah.
And he's already up there as a clutch player.
In a big moments, exactly.
Big moments,
like and you think about it as well, he basically dragged them over the line against the Giants when they were 44 points down. Him and a couple of others, mainly Will Ashcroft was the catalyst to get them back into that game and inevitably win the game. Yeah. Like him, Joe Danaher and whatever. But I think he's definitely going to be a star. And don't get me wrong, I mean, we could definitely be wrong about Nick Dacos being a better player. Who the hell knows? I mean, but I think that's definitely going to be talked about for years to come. Yeah. And hopefully next year they both get a good run at it, full 22 games of the season, and we get to see both of them going at it. And who knows, they could both be going for the Brownlow next year as well. I mean, I think Will Ashcroft, like, he only played the last couple of games this year, but, well, not the last couple of games, but he only played after the second half of the season, and how much of an influence that kid has on the Brisbane Lions was insane.
And the thing is also, like, you don't really get recognised in your first season or two, especially with being out of Melbourne, as we saw with Nick Dacos. It doesn't matter where he is on the field. If he's in Melbourne, he gets looked at. Yeah. Like with Cripps, how he got so many votes this year. Being Ashcroft, I think having that reputation, especially in finals, everyone's talking about you. They've just won the premiership this year. I think next year, you're looking at it, you'll see that they'll get looked at a bit more on Brownlow 9 next year. Yeah,
I agree. And probably on Brisbane as well, Joe Danaher, there's talk about him retiring, not so much really, he's kind of really tapered. I don't really know if he's going to now. I feel like if he was going to, he would have already done it.
I think he would have done it straight. I think if he won it, he would have announced it straight away. He would have announced it within the first 24, 48 hours.
Yeah. So I'm a bit, I mean, that's obviously, everyone was talking about how BT came out and said that they had some big announcement after the game and nothing happened. So whatever that was.
The rumour was that someone won. Well, there's only one winner at the end of the day, but that's not a rumour.
I don't really know what the fuck that was from him, but anyway, it's very fucking weird. But we've been skipping around it, dodging around it. Let's talk about Sydney in this game. What a fucking dreadful performance after the second quarter.
After the first quarter.
Yeah, I mean, halfway through the second quarter, the game was getting done. Now, this is the fourth loss in a row in a grand final, everyone would know by now. The third one by over 60 points. The fact that, and I looked at this as well, the fact that Sydney's two of their best three players on the ground were Robbie Fox, who wasn't even in their best 22 last week, and Luke Parker, who is the oldest player at the club and is expected to be leaving now, shows how poor the rest of the Swans players were. And I'm talking about the third best, I think the best player on the ground for Sydney was James Rowbottom. And I mean, that's fair enough. Like, he's a very good player for us, and he's very good. But the fact that Robbie Fox and Luke Parker, and I mean, to be fair, Luke Parker did kick 3 goals in the last quarter, so, you know, he kind of gets pushed up a little bit in the, like, talking points, whatever, on the statistics. Not so much padding the stats, but, you know, 3 goals in the last quarter makes your game look pretty good at the end of it.
You look at it, because it's grand final, everyone sees the stats, but you're like, I kicked 3 goals, he must have had a good game.
Yeah, or at least decent.
Yeah, decent game.
Yeah. I mean, I think he played okay, but also that's not good enough from the rest of the Swans players. There were so many players that were being passengers in that game, especially when the game looked like it was getting away from them. They just bent over and took it. It's something that's like happened this year, like obviously against Port Adelaide. That game was gone pretty quickly, and then Sydney, instead of trying to fight it out, they just bent over and just let it happen.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like I thought the turning point for that was when we beat the Giants, because we were getting beaten throughout that whole game, but we stuck with them, we stayed around, and then eventually we got our run at it and we won the game. But all we had to do was stick around, and that's what I think we had to do against Brisbane in this grand final, because I think there was a point there in that third quarter, even though the game was pretty much gone, that Brisbane, I wouldn't say put the cue in the rack, but they kind of got a bit nervous. Yeah. They got a bit nervous early in the third term. Sydney had a couple of opportunities to get the ball forward, but they just didn't fucking pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And the fact is as well, it was 46 points. One mistake or one moment from Brisbane and the game is gone. And that's basically what happened. It was a stoppage in the forward 50. Most of you would have seen it if you watched the highlights or if you missed the game. Will Ashcroft's was a stoppage with Errol Goulden lined up. Ashcroft gives him one of the softest like little pushes to get a little bit of gap, and Goulden just took it and then wouldn't fight back to get to him. He fights back if the game is closer. But the game was 46 points. I was like, who cares? What wasn't good enough? And there's too many Swans players in the last few grand finals when we have got smashed that as soon as it gets tough, they roll over.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like against Geelong, I understand, like, when we lost that grand final, it was obviously really tough. It was an 81-point loss. That's not good. But the fact is, the Sydney's team was very young. They probably overachieved towards the end of that year, and not really many people expected Sydney to win that game, unless they got it into an absolute speed game, which it was never really going to happen on grand final day. But this game, Sydney should have been going in as heavy favourites. They should have been, because it was against the 5th place team in the comp, Yes, Brisbane were in good form, but they also have had to travel a long way around. They should have been winning this game, the Swans, and should have been heavy favourites. But the reason why they weren't was because people don't trust them on grand final day. And I feel like there is a perception around that Sydney will tend to roll over when the going gets tough. And on grand final day, if it gets tough, you got to fight through. And too many players didn't. And people will talk about Isaac Heaney being injured. Look, I don't know. I mean, I think he was injured on the day, but I don't like the excuse of he's been injured throughout the whole final series. I don't feel like that's the case. The cunt did take a massive hanger in the first final, and then against Port Adelaide was still one of the Swans' best. Yeah. And kicked 2 or 3 and went forward and dominated. He got nowhere near the footy, and he needs to be better on grand final day. He shows that he can play well in big games, like in big finals. But when you get on grand final day, you still that's where reputations are made. Look at Lachie Neale now. His reputation has soared through the roof, even though he was already a dual Brownlow medalist. Yeah. The fact now that Heaney's got to live with that for another year or for many years now, until he maybe he gets back. I mean, it's no guarantee you ever get back. Yeah. So that's another point. So Golden, really poor performance from him. He just rolled over. Isaac Heaney, he was injured, I get that, but also he should have done a lot better. Chad Warner, he had a good game against the Cats a couple of years ago when Sydney got smashed. He was one of their only few good players, so I give him a little bit of a reprieve on that, but also he wasn't very good on the weekend. And one person that I think needs to be called out for this grand final is Brodie Grundy. I know this is a tough thing to say. On the stats sheet, he looks like he had a good game. On the champion data, he was Sydney's best rated player. The guy was against Darcy Fort, who's a VFL ruckman. Yes, he played well with Darcy Fort. I don't take anything away from him, but he's played VFL all year. And Joe Danaher. And Joe Danaher literally pushed him over at stoppage a couple of times. Darcy Fort was winning taps. So I don't really... And he was winning clearances as well. Like, Darcy Fort's not really... I don't think he's really known for clearance play as well. But he was... arguably the dominant ruckman on the game. I thought Brodie Grundy was incredibly disappointing, and he had a chance to dominate from ruck, and he didn't take it. He had it on a platter. All he had to do was just dominate a VFL graded ruckman. Yeah, which is, I mean, let's be honest. He was playing in the VFL last year, Brodie Grundy, and dominating. He's had very good games this year. I think he's tapered off towards the end of the year, but still, not good enough. And, I think there were some Swans players, they just couldn't get into it when it was needed. Like, a couple of people could call out, like Tom Papley or, a couple of the taller forwards. I don't really have an issue with their games. I think that Sydney got smashed in the middle and the game was gone. Logan McDonald's injury, again, that's another bad call from John Longmire. Playing injured players in finals. You could say, you could look at a Brisbane side. Lachie Neale obviously was nearly best player on the ground and they played him through an injury. So you could look at it that way. But Logan McDonald had one touch, was limping after the first touch, didn't have another one, came off at half time. Was not good enough. Yeah. Terrible decision. I think that I've talked to you about this. I don't know if anyone, I think I mentioned it in the stream, but Sydney should have played Caden Cleary because no, don't pick Laddams. Fuck no. And Aaron Francis, I don't really trust him. But also, I think the Sydney should have gone small. And I think there'll be something they look at next year, depending on what happens in the trade period. Because I do think Logan McDonald needs to start to lift here too. I think he's had he's obviously been given a lot of reprieve and a lot of patience. But this was the year that he was supposed to take over from Buddy Franklin. He was the understudy to him, and he hasn't taken it. Yeah. Joel Amartey had a better year. And nothing against Joel Amartey, but Logan McDonald was a 4th pick in the draft. He should be taking the mantle now. And he hasn't had a very good year. He's had a couple of good games, but I think that he gets away with a lot, and I think he needs to be talked about, that he needs to lift. He needs to have a big off-season. He needs to come back fit, strong, and ready to go. I don't really have an issue with how with the injury. That's the coach's call if they want to play him. I'm not going to say he's selfish for playing because I think that's a dumb thing to say. If a player says that if the coach, with Callum Mills, he should take it out of the player's hand. Yeah. So Logan McDonald needs to lift, and Sydney need to make some big calls in this off season because I think that round 1 or whatever the fuck they start opening round, they need to make some big calls on what they're going to do with that forward line, because it's an issue for them that they don't have a potent they don't have two, or they should have at least someone getting 50 plus goals in the year at least, and they didn't. Now they had a lot of contributors, but looks what happened. Like some of their top goal scorers this year with Isaac Heaney and Chad Warner. So, and that's from the midfield. So if they get shut down, which happened on that day, Sydney didn't have anyone to go to, and the inside 50 count was pretty well even. So that's another point. The last thing I want to make about, I'm just rambling over you, but I feel like this is a lot more of a rant that I can make. The last one I want to talk about is John Longmire, and it does need to be talked about now. He's coaching in grand finals. Now, I know there's not many coaches in the AFL who have the opportunity to make 5 grand finals, so it's kind of hard to put him. It's hard to put someone on the spotlight when, on a grand final stage, because not many people get that stage at all, let alone 5 times. But he has to be talked about because it's 3 grand. I looked at it because I'm planning on making a video essay about the Swans and how they've fallen in grand finals the last 3 of their last 4 times. But it needs to be talked about now that 3 of the 4 grand finals have basically been done at halftime. They've been shot because John Longmire, or whoever it is, the whole coaching staff really, they don't make big calls in the grand final when it needs to be made. So through the grand final period, in that grand final against the Lions, it was about, I think it was like 15, 20 minute mark of the quarter when the Lions really started to get on top. I think they led by 23 points just before the Eric Kipwood goal. Yeah. Or was it 29? It was one of them. He kicked that goal from the pocket and the game was basically gone from that point. When someone kicks a goal like that in a grand final, most of the time it's like, okay, you're fucking hot, that's game over. Eric Kipwood's getting a goal, even though he's pretty fucking poor in that game, let's be honest. He kicked that goal, it's like, okay, game done. Sydney needed to make changes earlier. Now, what they did is that they waited till half time. They chucked Luke Parker in the middle. They made Isaac Heaney play forward. I know he was injured, but, they made that change. They chucked on their sub. Again, I know it was an injury to Logan McDonald. But again, they chucked the sub on. Logan McDonald was gone in the first few minutes. That sub call should have been made earlier. Braden Campbell, bring him on. Now, I'm not saying he had a massive game when he came on anyway, but give him a go. He's fully fit. Go. Isaac Heaney, if he was injured throughout the whole final series and he's not having an impact in the first quarter and a half in the forward line, in the midfield, chuck him in the forward line. Have a go, chuck your plan B. That's what happened against GWS. When Sydney was struggling in the middle of the ground, they chucked Luke Parker in the middle. But they'd waited until half time. The game was if they made that change, you chuck out the runner when they kicked that goal to get up by 29 points or 23 points or it was under 5 goals. You make that call, then you say, Parker, get into the middle of the ground. The Harris Andrews tag isn't working because it didn't. He couldn't do it again. You chuck that. You make that change. You chuck someone in the last quarter. They chucked Ollie Florent through the middle of the ground, and they chucked Nick Blakey at full forward. Why are you making that change in the last quarter? It doesn't make a difference. If you're going to make some crazy calls like that, do it when the game is there to be won. Don't do it when the game is gone like it was at half time. Because the Lions had a 6-goal period in the space of 10-15 minutes. The game was gone. And I know I said before that I was in a bit the Swans, there was a bit of a point there where the Lions got a bit nervous in that third quarter. But the game was basically gone. Sydney had to play absolutely perfect from that point to even give themselves a opportunity to get back into that game. But because the belief was just shot, Sydney rolled over, it was all gone. So I was just very disappointed by Sydney's performance. I kind of feel like I was very similar to how you felt last week when Port Adelaide got beaten by Sydney because they just didn't fire a shot.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of felt like. In that first quarter, I thought, okay, we're down at quarter time, but we're actually playing okay. But as soon as Brisbane brought that really hot pressure in that second term, Sydney rolled over. Brisbane took all the chances that they had, and then they could have even led by more at halftime. They were that good. I'm not taking nothing away from Brisbane. They were brilliant, and they put Sydney to the sword, ended the game. But Sydney had to fire a shot. Surely when you're getting beaten by that much, getting beaten on the scale of the game in that second term, when the game is still there. The game, there was even a point there where the Lions weren't getting it on the board in that second term, but they were still dominating. Sydney had to put their foot down and say, we might as well lose this game by 10 goals, by 10 goals at halftime, or be down by nearly 90 points if we're not going to make some changes here. But they waited till halftime, they struggled in there to 46 points. And then they tried to do something in the third term by getting a bit of running the gun game going. But as soon as Ashcroft kicked the goal, it was game over. So I was very disappointed by how Sydney played. And if Sydney can't bury this and just say, oh, it's just a bad day. This is the fourth grand final, third out of the four now that they've got smashed. And the last two have been smashings. And they've been very close together. So look at the last two. Maybe not so much 2016 and 2014, because they were like, none of those players are even there other than Luke Parker and maybe Cal Mills. There's only like 3 or 4 that are still on the list. Don't worry about them ones. Worry about the 2022 and the 2024 premiership. Now, I know they say the preparation was fine. Whatever. I don't think that was a big issue on this game. Maybe on the Cats game. This one, I don't think it was. It was the fact that when the game got tough, the Swans rolled over.
Yeah.
So they need to start looking at it, and they need to, I don't know, I think they had some therapist or whatever come in and talk to them at the start of the season. Hire her full time when they were fucking playing well, Sydney. Because fuck me, that was poor. And I was very disappointed. The last thing I want to take a look at about the grand final before we move on to the trades is the champion data, because this means absolutely fuck all champion data. Looking at it, out of the top 6 rated players in a game where Brisbane won by 60 points, Sydney had 4. So looking at it, thank you Cinch Footy for putting this out, because champion data don't even basically like post on their like you think like on because I've tried to look at it for videos sometimes, champion data on their website to like look at stats. They don't even put it there. It's fucking shit. Anyway, so they have put out that Lachie Neale was highest rated player on the ground. Will Ashcroft was second. Fair enough. By 0.1 behind Will Ashcroft, who was the Norm Smith medalist, Brodie Grundy was there. He was Sydney's best rated player on the ground. Now, I think most people who watch the game would be like, Darcy Fort was better. Well, not even better, but like just held his own.
Yeah, competitive.
Yeah, exactly. Then Rowbottom was next. After that was Fox, who was not even in the Swans' fucking best 22 last week. I think Robbie Fox is a very good player, and they should have played him. They should have chucked him onto Kyle Lohmann to start the game. I think I said that to you at one point. I think I may have actually said it in the tips. And play him on. But then Luke Parker was 4th best for Sydney. But then after that, you get kind of the names that you recognise from Brisbane who were probably better on the day. Kyle Lohmann, brilliant. Archie, those two fucking... Like, they weren't even... I mean, Archie was kind of in their team last year. Yeah. At the start of the year. But Kyle Lohmann came from nowhere and, like, is now mainstay in the team. Dunkley, McCluggage, Berry, Zorko, Starskovich, and Morris, who actually had a pretty good game as well, Logan Morris. And then you get Chad Warner after that, and then kind of the names go down after that point. But yeah, champion data means absolutely fuck all at this point. Did you... I mean, you didn't see the game, so you probably can't have much of an opinion, but I did think that Will Ashcroft deserved the Norm Smith.
From what I saw, I only saw like the last 10 minutes of the second quarter when they turned it on.
Yeah.
So I can't really call on anything like that, but I think that I will say this, that if the Swans make it again to the grand final with John Longmire, you wouldn't want to be injured because he's not picking you. You'd think he wouldn't pick anyone injured next time it happens if he's there.
Well,
you wouldn't
who
think.
The fuck knows at this point?
It's like, well, like I think I said to you, or you said to me, is that how do you think Callum Mills feels? That Logan McDonald got the game and he was injured within the first 2 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
And
if I was Callum Mills, I'd be pretty pissed off considering I'm the captain. Yeah. It's like, why didn't you give me a go? Yeah. Like Taylor Adams as well. How do you think he fucking feels? He's like, I'm fit. And this has happened again. I guess at Collingwood, there was still a bit of a, maybe he wasn't, like, he was still a bit injured. Yeah. He didn't think he was. But again, he could have been playing in that game. So, yeah, I think there'd be a lot of talking points at the end of this grand final. And there needs to be a tough talk over the off-season for Sydney. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about some trade stuff. We're going to be going over the trade targets for every single club. But first, we'll start with a couple of trade rumours. So first of all, clubs are considering an Oliver play. Oh, for fuck's sake. Oh, Jesus Christ. Clayton Oliver signed to 2030's management, was contacted but refused to comment. So, shocker, I don't think he's going to really do that. During last year's trade period, Adelaide, St Kilda and Geelong were among the clubs to look at Oliver. Devons have faced a tumultuous off-season, blah, 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 blah. They don't mention one club that's looking at Clayton Oliver. So that's really...
So they must be really reporting that to the...
I don't think he goes anywhere.
No, he's... to be honest, he played... It was below average season from him.
Yeah. And I don't think... Like, let's be honest, if Melbourne want to get rid of him, at this point, it's going to be like Melbourne have to pay other clubs to really take him.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be paying more than a third rounder because you're literally paying for.
It's a huge gamble.
Like it's a huge gamble, and you got to pay, and you've got to it's a huge gamble. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Another one here is Jake Stringer. Big talking point that maybe GWS could be in the market for him.
Well, it was only a couple of weeks ago that they said the Swans were. But
I hope the Swans don't look at him. No offense, but we don't need Jake Stringer. He's basically a type of like Will Hayward.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So I mean, we don't need him.
Yeah.
Jake Stringer's been looked at by the Giants. I think
they need it. I don't think they need it either.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're thinking about it, he's basically just Toby Green, if anything. You know, I mean, if Toby Green's there, you're not going to replace Toby Green. They can't have two of them up the forward because they need their pressure forwards. Like, who would he take over for? Like, and then you got Brent Daniels.
One of the young players that they're actually better than him at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, you'd probably have to think about maybe like a Cadman or Darcy Jones. I'm not taking any of them out.
And you're thinking also is like, what will Stringer really give you? One good game every 5 weeks?
Yeah.
The Giants don't need that.
Yeah. I think that Collingwood was a good chance of maybe potentially getting him until they ruled that out. I wouldn't have minded that on a Collingwood side because I think they lack that sort of player. But yeah, I mean they're not going for him anyway. Giants unrestricted free agent Harry Perryman is edging closer to a decision with Collingwood's latest strong push. Giving him as a boyhood Magpies fan. I don't think that really matters. It's about the money at this point.
Yeah.
And Port Adelaide are obviously offering a 6-year deal.
Yeah, it's out of them too. I think he's going to go to Melbourne. I think he'll go to Collingwood. But yeah, Port ran their run.
Did you wanted him to go to Port Adelaide?
I would have been nice. I think that with the players that are leaving for Port Adelaide, I think it would have been a nice fit. Yeah.
Another GWS player as well is James Peatling. Looks like the Crows have already they've already recruited Isaac Cumming, and it does seem that Peatling has met with the Crows last week. So James Peatling kind of becoming like the almost he's a decent player, but he was like played decent this year, and he's not like been a massive player. But there's like 6 or 7 clubs looking at this guy.
Well, it's funny because he played the last month and a half. He played pretty well.
Yeah.
So and then
he's playing in the midfield. I mean, he played on Dane Zorko and did a pretty good job on him in that semi-final.
So there's a spot for him probably at the Crows, but is this gonna make them better? No, I don't know.
I think it builds their midfield depth a little bit, but not a lot.
No, it's not like it's gonna. What? So you need another tagger? Well, why? Yeah. Why do you want a tagger?
I mean, I think that to be honest, if the Crows were to get him, I think there's like St Kilda looking at him as well. He still stay at the Giants, and I think honestly he'll stay there. I think this is very much his management going, look, at the moment you're the hot hand. Let's try and get some money out of this. Yeah. I think that's what it kind of is. Another one is, and the Eagles also looked at interest of Peatling as well. Western Bulldogs have also sent a multi-year offer to Xavier O'Halloran. I don't actually mind that deal. I think Xavier O'Halloran's a pretty underrated player. Just can't get into the team.
Yeah.
But is he a James Harms sort of go? I mean,
he kind of seems like they're trying to just grab any forward because they don't have many smalls.
I feel like Xavier O'Halloran's much of a Cody Waitman type. I think they do need more of a pressure forward. I don't really think Xavier O'Halloran really brings that. I mean, I think he does to an extent.
I think he does, but I think that he should be on the move. I do. So I think it is a good move for the Dogs.
Yeah.
And for him, because you're looking at, he's not going to get into that best 22 of the Giants every week. I don't see it with the amount of smalls that the Giants have. So I think he's got to explore it. I do think it's more of that James Harms is like, if he doesn't get it in, if he's not a favoured son of Bevo, he's never getting in that team.
Yeah. Or, I mean, unless you've they don't have Jackson McRae anymore to just send a sub and then bring him in randomly for no reason.
Exactly, yeah.
Another one as well is, this one's kind of already confirmed as a trade request. Wade Dirksen. I did not even know this name existed. They could have said that this guy had a LinkedIn page and was working down at fucking insurance company. I didn't know who this guy was.
Neither do I. I still don't know who he is.
So apparently he is a Giant and he's requested a trade to Melbourne. So, very weird one. I didn't really see this one coming, but apparently he's a big deal.
Yeah.
Anyway, hot demand for the Suns. The Suns picked 12, has become in demand for selection, which will probably push back to like 16, 17. Clubs are chasing this pick given it would likely be eaten up by a bid for the Suns' academy prospect Leo Lombard. So looks like that could potentially be picked up. Looks like West Coast with the appointment of Andrew McWalter, which we talked about. Richmond players in Liam Baker, who was contracted, and Jack Graham, who is a free agent, want to join the West Coast Eagles. So I think this is good for West Coast. I just think that they need to build their depth, though. They can't throw away all their draft picks on... I mean, obviously, they'll pick up Graham for free, basically. They don't have to give anything away. But they can't use too much on Liam Baker. Like, go for him. They will probably get him in the end anyway.
Yeah.
But just hold off. I don't think you need to overpay for this. And they need to be careful because they need to build their depth, the Eagles. So I think that's pretty fair enough. D's examined the move for the Blues. So it looks like that, obviously, out of favour, Matt Owies has been told to go look around. Melbourne are looking at him. I think that's a pretty good choice for Melbourne, Matt Owies.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to go to Melbourne if I was him.
Yeah.
I think there's too many problems there at the moment in every position, every facet, every facility there at Melbourne.
Yeah. It says here as well that Matt Owies has met with Brisbane, West Coast and the Gold Coast. I think that's very interesting. It says here the Lions have been in the market for a small forward this year and could make a play for Owies.
Well, I don't think they need to, but...
yeah, I don't really think they need to at the moment. I feel like they've got enough there.
I think they're doing pretty well at the moment. I don't know.
Yeah. That's pretty much all the trade rumours that I'm looking at. Obviously, Nick Haynes looks like he'll join Carlton at least on an unrestricted free agent as a one-year deal. Blues are expected to retain midfielder Matt Kennedy, despite him looking at his options, while Lewis Young has been eyeing a chance at a third club playing on limited game time this season. I think you could definitely find another club, Lewis Young.
Yeah, I think there's enough teams that need a defender like that.
Yeah, I mean, especially just as depth there anyway. But let's go crack down at their trade targets or potential players leaving. So the Adelaide Crows, we start with Elliot Himmelberg, obviously a massive talking point last year, potentially joining his brother at the Giants. Looks like now he's weighing up some interest from the Gold Coast Suns. So obviously was out of favour from Matthew Nicks a lot this year. If I'm the Giants, I'm re-looking at that, to be honest.
I am.
I think that they struggled this year with that second forward, especially in the final series, had to use Lockie Keefe. And like Lockie Keefe's just getting a bit old now. I think Elliot Himmelberg's definitely that guy who can pinch hit in the ruck, but he's a capable forward.
I think the Crows will be stupid to get rid of him. I think that he is a capable forward. I think that signing Taylor Walker again was not the right move. I think they needed to look at it because Lachlan Gallant can't do it.
I mean, he kicked 5 goals against you.
Yeah, all right, one game.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's the Mason Cox world, all right?
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, the Crows, I think, will regret that if they get rid of him.
Yeah.
If he goes to the Giants.
Yeah, and on the other side of it, the Crows look like they have a couple of good players coming in. Obviously, Alex Newbull and Isaac Cumming have elected to go to the Crows. Elsewhere, it looks like the Gold Coast is told to assess his options and could bolster the Crows' forward line. I think that's definitely a good one they could look at. Definitely would pair up with Isaac Rankin, but there hasn't been really too many talks about Malcolm Rose's looking at the Crows.
Yeah.
I think as well there's been some talk that the Gold Coast are just going to just hold him up anyway. On Brisbane, players that could leave, Devon Robertson obviously played in the 2023 Grand Final, fell out of favour this year and is looking for a fresh start. Very interesting as well because he was looked at by West Coast last year, decided to stay and then never got in the team. So he's a Western Australian. I think it was West Coast who wanted him last year.
I wouldn't be surprised. He should be looking WA. I think both teams would probably be good to have him. I think.
Yeah, it's a midfield depth. I think probably West Coast is more likely.
I think West Coast is better option, but I would he can play a bit in that Freo team. I think.
Yeah, Jackson Pryor is another name that could be on the move with a halfback still without a deal for 2025. It looks like Essendon have been a bit involved with Jackson Pryor.
Yeah.
I think there'll be a couple of. Usually when a grand finalist makes it, there's a couple of players that potentially want to look to move on because they missed out and can't break into the premiership team. So they're kind of on the fringes. So another club to look at for Brisbane, they are looking hard at these small forwards. Malcolm Roses has kind of been half linked to the Brisbane Lions. If The Gold Coast continue to get rid of their good players. Like they've done it with Jared Lyons, and then he became pretty decent at the Brisbane Lions. And obviously the premiership hero in Cal Archie. If they do this with him as well, Malcolm Roses, and they just give, oh look, we don't really want him. We're just going to send him down the road, down the highway, whatever the fuck it is. And they give up Malcolm Roses to the Brisbane Lions. I'll be fucking ropeable if I'm a Gold Coast fan. Like I said, Matt Always is also being looked at, and obviously Levi Ashcroft, not really much of a trade rumour, but that would be nice. That would be really nice next year. And another academy prospect in Sam Marshall, so that's going to be good. There's also been a little bit of interest from Jack Martin, but I don't think that's going to happen. On Carlton's side, for players to leave, Matt Always, I still can't believe they're looking to get rid of him. I feel like, and I think it was mentioned in a report that the main reason why they're doing it is because all their other small forwards are signed and they need to clear some cap space. So that's the main reason why they're doing it. I would still fucking trade out one of the other ones. I'm being honest with you.
I don't know.
See use the lure of like Corey Durden's not doing it for you.
I don't know why they're not getting rid of him over Matt Always. I think he was very stiff to miss the prelim last year, Matt Always.
Yeah,
and
clearly he's having sex with Michael Boss's daughter or something.
It's got to be something. Like that because, there's something wrong there because he's not an A grader. We're not saying that, but he's a decent.
I mean, he kicked 30 goals this year in a forward line that had Curnow and Mackay.
Yeah, it's not like it's who's kicking the goals if both of them are not kicking it. If you get rid of Matt Always, well, what you got Motlop who did nothing again this season. Yeah.
Jack Carroll could also be heading back home to Western Australia. That'll be an interesting one. And Matt Kennedy looks like now will stay. That's still a talking point. Obviously, Lewis Young is probably on the way out. And now Carlton on the way in. They want so badly Dan Houston. He said he wants to go back to Victoria, but has said that he is okay. If they can't get a deal, he'll stay at Port Adelaide. But I feel like at this point, he's probably going to go.
Pretty much, you guarantee it.
Yeah, I feel like if he goes back, he's going to have to mend a lot of bridges. Yeah,
he's pretty much said,
I want to stay.
A month ago, I'm staying, I'm going to stay. And then 3 weeks later, oh no, I'm out.
Yeah. Nick Haynes, obviously, should be able to play. He'll get there pretty easily as an unrestricted free agent.
Do you think he will actually play, though? I think
he will. I think he's definitely got some more footy to offer. I think there's going to be there's going to be a huge structural change for Carlton next year up forward because I think they know now that they're not going to win a premiership just bombing along to Curnow and Mackay. They need to find a third
let's
option.
get rid of our small and Matt Owies and
Yeah, well, I still don't know what they're doing about that.
Jordan Boyd, the defender down there.
You think they'll do that, do you?
Well, they're trying anything, aren't they? They're trying to flip the magnet.
Yeah, let's chuck Pitton up there, see what happens.
Why not?
Essendon defender Jaden Laverde has also been linked to the Blues. I think that wouldn't be a bad one, but I mean, if they're picking up Nick Haynes, why do they need Jaden Laverde?
Yeah, well, you're looking at it. It's like, well, what they spent so much money on Mackay. Let's just get rid of Laverde.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have been fine.
Mackay the fumbler.
Yeah.
Anyway, looking at Collingwood players to leave, obviously John Noble's requested a trade to the Gold Coast. Joe Richards has retracted rival interest from Port Adelaide, so that'll be interesting how that one plays out. While Finlay McRae and Reece McGuinness have been struggling to cement their spots in the best team and remain uncontracted.
I'm surprised McRae didn't leave last year.
Yeah. Also, Nathan Kruger. I feel like Collingwood have to hold on to at least McRae and Kruger. I mean, McGuinness, they say it's going to be a pretty good trade draft this year, so maybe McGuinness could go. That's probably why they're waiting on him. But yeah, I think that's one that they could probably look at. Harry Perryman, we just mentioned, with Port Adelaide. Looks like, obviously, it looks like Collingwood are going to be pushing hard for him. Yeah. That'll be interesting. Jake Stringer obviously dropped off, and then James Peatling also been looked at by Collingwood. We'll see how that plays out. And out of favour, Essendon midfielder in Ben Hobbs as well.
Yeah, would be a nice option for Collingwood.
Yeah, and then probably the big one on the tall side that Collingwood are really trying to cement up or try and get something there is Ollie Lord or Adam Tomlinson on either side of the field.
Well, if I'm Port Adelaide, you're signing him up.
Yeah.
Even if you have to give him an extra bloody year, I think it would be worth it for Port Adelaide.
Yeah, and then also Dan Houston's obviously been in and out of the race with Collingwood. I feel like
he's out of two, North Melbourne or Carlton.
Yeah, I think that's probably where it's going to be. Looking at Essendon, Dylan Shield obviously as well been obviously been in and out of the team. He came back at the end of the year I think he'll be okay.
Yeah, well, St Kilda have had interest in him in the last couple of seasons.
Well, speaking of St Kilda, it looks like they're kind of throwing more their fish into the Zach Merritt basket. That's not going to happen. No way in hell.
Well, no.
No. Elijah Stardust as well has been maybe potentially looking around. I'm not too sure about that. And Will Setterfield and Sam Wiedemann still remain in contract limbo.
Well, I would get rid of Wiedemann because...
Yeah, I don't know why they played him in the end of the year at half-back. That was just a weird decision. I don't think that was needed. Will Setterfield, I feel like you should sign on for another year. Looking at the players to come in, though, Josh Rotham, Finn McGuinness and Jackson Pryor, which we previously mentioned, they're kind of the trade targets they're looking at. I just feel like at this point, Essendon needs to... stop just grabbing any sort of player that they can get up and actually try and build towards a final.
Yeah, I think,
Try and build a squad that they've got. I mean, I don't mind bringing in players, but it feels like at this point they're just bringing in anyone.
They're just bringing in
just
magnets.
hoping.
They're just bringing in magnets, put him in different positions and be like, oh yeah, he'll be all right there. We'll see what happens. It doesn't happen.
Well, going into the draft this year, Essendon, they've only got pick 8 and pick 28. So they're not really going draft, which is fair enough, but also it's like, you should be challenging for a flag if you're not going in the draft, I think, a little bit anyway. I'm looking at Fremantle, Matt Taberner, Ethan Hughes, Josh Corbett, they're players who have left or delisted. Tom Emmett as well could be seeking a trade back to back to South Australia, so Adelaide or Port Adelaide. That wouldn't be a bad one. I think Tom Emmett brought some good signs throughout the year when he played up forward. Will Brodie, a very interesting one, still remains contracted at Fremantle, but just doesn't seem to get a go. I feel like they're waiting for Nat Fyfe to retire.
Yeah, it seems like either let him retire and Will Brodie comes in, or
let Will Brodie go.
Let him go. It's like he struggled to get into the Gold Coast team a couple of years ago, and he just went to the WA. He played a really good season in 22, but he just couldn't get into the team after that.
Yeah, I feel like they're kind of the needy that they're going to pick him or Fyfe, and I think they're not going to drop. They just don't want to drop Fyfe or anything, so that's the point there. I'm looking on the players potentially coming in for Fremantle. Shea Bolton, obviously the big talking point, he wants to get back to Western Australia. Still yet to elect what club he wants to go to, but and now obviously with Andrew McWalter being the West Coast coach, now they're wondering if he's going to decide to go to West Coast, because obviously Liam Baker and Jack Graham have made that decision. I still think that Shea Bolton wants a premiership. I think that he'll go to Fremantle on my feeling, but I still think there's a bit of more to play out here.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I don't mind the fact is that he's waited till now. I think he was waiting to see who would take over as the West Coast coach.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting which way he wants to go.
Yeah, looking at other players as well, obviously Liam Baker now has decided to go to West Coast. Another one, Jack Martin, has actually gone under a medical for Fremantle, and if he overcomes the injury struggles, could be a pickup as a delisted free agent. And Devon Robinson, which we previously mentioned as well, could be a chance to get to there. And there's obviously a chance as well that Fremantle are going to try and stock up draft picks for next year to look at Chad Warner. So if they want to try and really go hard for that one, but let's hope not on Sydney's side. So looking at Geelong's side, of course, a couple of big players calling on their retirements. Gary Rowan as well, and Brendan Parfitt leaving the club on delisting, and Tom Hawkins, of course. Still a couple of older players still there, but not really a lot of players looking to leave at this stage for Geelong, which is kind of understandable. No one really leaves Geelong. Obviously, the big one on the arrival front, though, is Bailey Smith. I think he still hasn't elected them. But let's be honest, this guy is already in a Geelong. He's already in a Geelong jumper.
Out the door.
He's already looking for houses in Geelong. Yeah. He's gone. Another one as well, Jake Waterman, was kind of looked at, expressing some interest in him. I think that I'm surprised no other clubs really like. I mean, I think Melbourne have looked at him as well. Yeah. But I think if you want to get a big forward like him, I think you offer a lot of money. I think he's really the only key forward now that could potentially move. That's like got a lot of money around him. I think that's a look at. And Jack Martin as well has been linked to Geelong at times. Obviously Bailey Smith's the big one. Yeah, they'll obviously get him, and they'll be up there again. Top 4 chance, top 2 chance, premiership chance. Who the hell knows? It's hard to look at the Geelong sometimes. Oh well. Anyway, players to leave on the Gold Coast front. Jack Lukosius has decided to request a trade to Port Adelaide. Malcolm Roses has been told to look at his options. I think he'll probably stay at the end of the day. I think that they won't push him out.
I think with the Lukosius coming out, I think they can't afford to lose Roses. Yeah.
Alex Davies has decided to stay at Gold Coast despite having interest from Collingwood and Geelong. But players looking to arrive. Daniel Rioli and John Noble have requested moves there, so I think that'll happen eventually. They've got to save up some draft picks for Leo Lombard, of course, being an academy pick. But Dustin Martin, what's happening here? I thought there was no way in hell he was going to be moving there. But right now, who the hell knows?
If I'm Gold Coast, I'm not doing it. I think he's past his prime. I think he's past his best years. And it's the Gary Ablett 2.0 if they do it.
Yeah, but if you're... I mean, I kind of agree with you if they're offering him a lot of money. But if he goes down there at $250,000 a year, $250,000 on a 1-year deal, is it that bad?
No, but I think if you're gonna offer him anything, you offer him a coaching role. You don't offer him that. You don't offer him a player because all he's doing is playing for 1 year for what a player that would maybe get some experience in the senior team next year.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always been against it, but as it gets closer, I'm like, and because I thought if he was going to go there, he was going to get huge money, and I was like, there's no point signing him. If there is talk now that potentially he would have to go on very low money, and the talk has kind of cooled down. We haven't really heard much about it in the last week or so. And obviously, it's been really big finals talks. That's maybe why. I kind of lean on the side of like, let's just. I don't think it's a good idea for the Gold Coast, but if they can get him on, I mean, if it was around like a rookie contract, if they get him for that, I'd be like, do it. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I still think he's got a potential to kick your 30, 40 goals. If you play him forward, help out with Ben King. Kick some goals, because let's be honest, they don't really have a second that's really helping them out like at the moment. Like Jed Walter's still got a couple of years to go before he gets really into it, and obviously Jack Lukosius is leaving. I wouldn't be too disappointed. I wouldn't be like, oh, it's a dumb decision from the Gold Coast if they got him for very cheap, if they got him around a rookie contract. Yeah. But if he goes on like 500,000, that's just dumb, I think. Anyway, considering he has been pretty injury prone the last year or so. Looking at the Giants, obviously got Harry Perryman, Isaac Cumming, Nick Haynes leaving. James Peatlings could be on the out. We don't really know. And obviously the big loss on the delisting front was Cooper Hamilton. Absolutely dreadful. Yeah, that was a dumb decision. That's the reason why they lost. I think he had that writing on the wall, and they lost in straight sets. Yeah. They obviously just shot themselves in the foot. There was karma coming back to get them. Adam, you're an idiot. Stop working on your arms and your biceps, and obviously watch the media team that are putting out absolutely fire content thanks to Cooper Hamilton. You've just let go an absolute star in the making. Anyway, on the players coming in, there's not really a lot talked about on the Giants so far. Basically, the big one is Elliot Himmelberg, if they do want to go at him again. Be honest, I don't think the Giants have to do too much here. I think that's probably their biggest weakness is a second tall forward. I think everything else is probably fair for the Giants. I think that they just went a bit unlucky in the final series.
Yeah, I think maybe this year they just need to attack the draft. Like, just get some more players in. They can get rid of those players that maybe were in their best 22, but just get some cap space, and then next year go for what they want and see what other players are out there. Because everyone seems to be setting up for where they want to go already. They don't just before
the Tassie team as well. Yeah. I think that's what they're setting up for now. I
think they've just got to set up for that.
Looking at Hawthorn, Sam Frost has really been the only one that's been talked about leaving, like from their main 22. Obviously, Sydney and St Kilda have had interest in Sam Frost. He's quite old though, so he's 31. I think going on 32 next year, so that will be an interesting one. I think that if I was Sydney, I would kind of look at it. To be honest, I think he's a decent look at, but wouldn't be pushing too hard. Wouldn't be throwing a huge amount of money at him. Denver Granger Barras remains without a deal for 2025. Was a pick 6, I believe, when he got drafted in 2020. His home state is WA, so I think they're going to wait till the end of the trade period to see if they can fill a couple of list spots the Hawks, and then maybe let him go.
Well, it will be interesting because obviously with Barras likely to go to Hawthorn
and Josh Battle.
Yeah, and Josh Battle. That Granger Barras will probably leave, but see what options he can go. Maybe he can go back to WA and go to West Coast.
I feel like at this point that maybe that's probably what's going to happen. I feel like he'll be a part of the deal with Tom Barras. Yeah, I think they'll probably be a part of the deal. They have to get a decent pick and Granger Barras, and then they'll get Tom Barras. Yeah. I think that's how it will probably play out. Like I said, Josh Battle and Tom Barras are the real looking at for Hawthorn. Harry Perryman was a little bit in talks with Hawthorn, but it's kind of tapered off now. And the other one was Bailey Smith. They were basically the second team, basically the bridesmaids of the bridesmaids to Geelong. I don't think they're going to go to Hawthorn. It is surprising that Bailey Smith hasn't elected a club yet, but I feel like that's
You should
inevitable.
just know it will have to be his injury because we all knew he was going.
Or maybe he's going to do one of those NBA draft sort of things when he puts the two hats in front of him.
Yeah.
And then he'll be like, I'm going to Geelong, baby.
Yeah.
And then just like takes his shirt off to get all these 14-year-old girls excited about him.
Yeah.
Anyway, on to Melbourne. Oh, fucking hell. Petrarca, Viney, Pickett were three names that were on and off about going. Petrarca basically was held at gunpoint. He's not going. Viney, like, just milked out an extra deal on his contract. Good on him. And Keziah Pickett, don't really know what he was thinking about. He was like, yeah, no. So he didn't. Eventually, I think he's staying. Alex Neil-Bullen is the one who has requested a trade back to the Crows for family reasons. Adam Tomlinson is a free agent. He is expected to actually leave Melbourne. I think he's 30 years of age now. So, you know, he could be picked up. If I was Sydney, I'd be looking at him. I think a couple of top clubs could definitely look at him as a potential option. Joel Smith, he's gone. I think he's without a contract for 2025.
There's no
way.
Well, actually, they probably would sign him.
Yeah. Who the fuck knows at this point? Lockie Hunter also retired as well. Now, players on wanting to come to Melbourne. Dan Houston obviously they were the major team linked to Dan Houston for a lot of this year. And then all the Petrarca stuff coming out. And then he was like, look, I think I'll stay at Port Adelaide.
Yeah, maybe that's why he said it. Yeah, I'm staying at Port Adelaide.
Yeah.
And then,
So they're also looking at, obviously they got the trade request from Wade Dirksen from GWS, a very weird one. They also are likely to look at journeyman Tom Campbell as a delisted free agent to cover for Max Gawn. Obviously, this guy, Tom Campbell's been at nearly every club in Victoria as a delisted free agent. He's been at the Bulldogs, North Melbourne, St Kilda. I think that's it. But I mean, he's covered three of them. He's going to be he could potentially be in a fourth club. And also, the Demons are potentially looking at Lee Kalia. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, it is an interesting one. I think that he was only in the team when a big defender came out. So
yeah. So I think that could be an interesting one to look at. And also Brandon Parfitt could also be looked at as a delisted free agent. Don't mind that idea as well. Trying to fill up some spots. Looking at North Melbourne, Curtis Taylor. Weird decision to delist him. I thought he was a pretty decent player, Curtis Taylor.
Yeah.
So he's obviously delisted. Ewan has been delisted from North Melbourne after 1 year after coming over from Richmond.
It's a very weird thing to even pick him up. But
yeah, I don't know about that. Big one they're talking about coming in is Luke Parker. After that grand final, Sydney need to do something to keep him at the club. I know that's so weird for a guy who's played there for so many years and is probably on the end of his career, but they need to do something to keep him. And Jack Darling obviously has requested a move to West Coast, from West Coast to North Melbourne to help out Nick Larkey a bit more. And then two big ones. Caleb Daniel is expected to, could potentially move to the North Melbourne. I feel like that's a big money move. That feels like a Dylan Stevens, we'll give you all the cash in the world, just come to the club, please. And Dan Houston as well. So, I don't know. I feel like if Dan Houston wants to move to Victoria, eventually he'll be like, if it's only Carlton and North Melbourne coming at me, he's going to be like, look, I just want to request a trade to Carlton, please. Don't let me go to North Melbourne, unless they're offering him like $2 million. Yeah. So, I feel like that's another one. But I know, as you would say, Port Adelaide, you would rather be trading with them.
Yeah, I think that because obviously they've got the higher picks.
Well, yeah, I mean, do you think Dan Houston's worth a pick too? I don't think so. I mean,
But you're gonna.
He's a dual All Australian.
If he was in Victoria, it'd be talked about longer. So you see next year.
I mean, he is the Nick Dacos of South Australia. I agree with you.
Yeah. If he didn't do this, if he didn't get suspended for doing such a stupid act.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think Isaac Rankin flopped a little.
We beat the Swans in that prelim, and we go to the grand final. We lose by 30 points.
Yeah, I think knowing you guys, you would have been bloody smashed by 100. Yeah, you'd be like, let's try and beat the record.
Yeah, if we beat, we'd increase our record.
So a couple of players on Port Adelaide. Moving to next couple of players that are looking to leave is Dan Houston wants to trade back to Victoria. Ivan Soldo, after 1 year in South Australia, wants to move back to Victoria after his girlfriend left him.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, he's like, I don't like this state, so I'm going back to so I'm leaving.
And then his girlfriend was. Well, I think they were still together. They were doing long distance.
Yeah, she said, "Oh, it's such a boring state. I don't want to be here." She left.
She has a point though. I mean, I'm from South Australia, and I can have that saying, but also, yeah. Anyway, shouldn't have came here in the first place. To be honest, They should have fucking never done it anyway because they were always into Sweet anyway. And then eventually he took over. So anyway, sorry, a little bit of like tea for you. Oh, that's so cringe. Anyway, and players wanting to look at Port Adelaide, Harry Perryman could, I think it's 50-50 now in Collingwood.
Money and
and then we've got Jack Lukosius. Do you think that's a good one for Port?
Yeah, I do. I think he can play a bit of any role at forward or back.
Yeah.
He's a lovely field kick.
Yeah. He just has to find consistency, I think.
I think maybe a new environment coming home. I think that the Crows thought their relationship was better, but I guess Rosie's relationship with him is actually stronger.
Oh yeah, real best buddies. Anyway, looking at small forwards for Port Adelaide, Joe Richards from Collingwood and Riley Garcia from the Western Bulldogs are reportedly targets in the off-season for power.
They're better than Jed McEntee and Francis Evans.
Yeah, I think they're definitely decent pickups if they want to go for that as well. Looking at Richmond, what an off-season they have. Shea Bolton looking to return to WA. I still think that's Fremantle. Baker and Graham are going to West Coast, and then Daniel Rioli looks to reunite with Damien Hardwick at the Gold Coast. A couple of players still haven't been signed yet is Camden McIntosh, Noah Cumberland, Thomas Dow, Matt Coulthard, Kalina, and Hayes Brown. I don't know the last two, but the last three actually. But yeah,
it'll be interesting on McIntosh. I think they may move him on.
I think they have to hold him. Like they can't just lose every experienced player.
Yeah, but I think that it's a position that I think they can cover with some. I think they need to just take every hit now and hit rock bottom and then look to go up. I think if players that they don't see in the future, that they don't see in the next finals campaign, probably 4 or 5 or 6 years, they've just got to cut them now because obviously with the new team in Tasmania, you might as well hit rock bottom now.
Yeah, I don't know. I still think you hold Camden McIntosh, but we'll see how that plays out. Looking at players potentially coming to Richmond, looking at 2 Essendon midfielders, which we mentioned earlier, Ben Hobbs and Sardis. There's not really going to be a lot that Richmond are going to be able to get, I think, from trade at the moment. I feel like players kind of know, unless you're going to get offered a bit of money. Yeah. I mean, they are a big Melbourne club, a Victorian club, so maybe there's a look at, but I think that if they can get anyone, like if they can get a Ben Hobbs or a Sardis, I think that'd be a very good start.
Well, I'm surprised that especially Hobbs didn't get a lot. He didn't get a lot of game time in the midfield, but I think he could have played a role in the Essendon team.
Yeah,
a lot more than he did.
Yeah, well, looking at it, Richmond obviously at the moment inside the first 40 picks have picked 1, 21, 29, and 39. But they're going to get stacks more picks obviously with Baker and Bolton coming up. So yeah. I think they'll be fine. Richmond
compensation from Jack Graham.
Yeah, exactly. So looking at St Kilda players looking to leave is Josh Battle, obviously a big one, and Tim Membry still looking to assess his options. He's been linked to Essendon, so that's an interesting one. Looking at that. And then maybe they're looking at Jake Stringer as potentially coming in the other way. I don't know about that. And then obviously Zach Merritt's been the big talking point. Yeah. They've been trying to flop out their meat, basically, St Kilda. Their big war chest. They're like, come to the club, please. Yeah. So Zach Merritt's been the big talking one. They're obviously flagged in the past. Hugh McCluggage, Davies Uniacke. Not really looking at them. They're obviously not going there. Jack McRae has said he wants to be traded to St Kilda. I think it's actually a pretty good one for St Kilda.
Yeah, they're saying that they want the Bulldogs want pick. I think it's 53 or something.
So he's haggling over 43 here.
43, yeah. I don't think he's worth that.
Oh no,
I don't think he's worth that. I think that they're not playing him. It's like with Freo and Geelong when Jordan Clark. They wanted a first rounder for him when they weren't playing him in the team. It's the same thing here.
Yeah, it's like you can't ask for that, bro.
It's like you can't ask him that. You weren't playing him in the team. You played him as the sub for the most of the games that you played in this year.
Yeah.
Like if you're not going to keep him, he's picked whatever later than that.
Yeah. Looking at other players as well, Adam Tomlinson and Jaden Laverde have been looked at.
I think they need those sort of players.
I think the depth, like defenders, they could definitely use.
Yeah, I think, but also you can look at it as like, is that the position they need a bolster? I think they need to bolster some other positions.
Yeah, true. I mean, their midfield is definitely something that's lacking. I think that's why they're definitely looking at it. They're trying to get someone.
Yeah, they want that big midfielder.
They've been linked to Finn Callahan as well. They obviously want to offer him a lot of money. I think it's actually a decent look at.
Yeah.
And then Ivan Soldo is really the other one.
That's not what they need to look at.
Is it like a second forward, maybe it's like a second. I don't know.
Maybe he was a pretty decent forward.
Yeah, and also looking at Dan Houston and Dylan Shield. I think Dylan Shield they should be trying to go a bit harder for, to be honest. I think that I know he's a bit older, but I think he definitely adds that sort of kicking skills that towards the end of the year, St Kilda started to show that they were using their foot skills a lot better.
I think they utilised more the Wanganeen Malera a bit more. I think.
So I think if they did have a Dylan Shield to help out as well.
Yeah.
Looking to Sydney now. Players looking to leave. Luke Parker looks all but certain now to be landing at North Melbourne. Peter Adams has basically been told to assess his options after being stuck behind Brodie Grundy. Please go.
I think he's pushed out the door at Port Adelaide. I don't know if he'll come back. He might just come back to South Australia and.
I mean, report it to the Crows need a ruckman.
Well, they keep on saying that they don't want Riley O'Brien. They want Phil Thorpe to take that position. It's like,
true.
They want him down forward.
Yeah. Looking at the Swans potentially bringing in players. First one is Jake Stringer. Please, for the love of God, Sydney, don't pick up Jake Stringer. He's good for 4 or 5 good games a year. We don't need that. I'm sorry, we don't need that. We've got Will Hayward there. He's that role anyway, and plus he's quicker. Now, Jake Stringer, very good on his day, but he wants a 2-year deal. He's contract Stringer. He's not going to be good in the first year. He's going to be at Macca's most nights, let's be honest. So, no. Anyway, Finn McGuinness and Sam Frost have also been looked at by the Swans. I don't mind Finn McGuinness as an option. I think that if Sydney were going to grab him, I think that adds a little bit of midfield depth. Could be a tagger for Sydney, which gives James Jordan a little bit more opportunity to play elsewhere. Give him more because he's a bit more better of a runner. I think that he could be used as a better option on as a potential option somewhere. So I don't mind that idea. And Sam Frost, I wouldn't mind him coming as a bit of depth, but who would he take over for at Sydney? I think Melican had a really good year, and so did Tom McCartan. So he would basically have to come over for Rampy, which is like he's not doing that. And then I think Sydney would go in too tall in defence if Frost came in as well. So I think I don't know how that's going to play out.
Change to the role of Blakey or something.
Yeah, but I feel like that's not really needed.
No.
But I think, again, he's also... They're 2 different players. And obviously, Sam Frost, he's more... yes, he is quick, but he's definitely a tall defender.
Well, when he's quick, he normally fucks up. That's normally what everyone
that's
says.
true. Yeah, you don't really want to go around Frost when he's running off halfback. You're like, oh, shit, where's this one going? Yeah. Looking at West Coast players that are looking to leave, Tom Barrass obviously wanted to make his way to Hawthorn. If you didn't lie to him in that last trade period, the Swans could have had Tom Barrass. Fucking dogs. Anyway, Josh Rotham has been attracting interest from Essendon, like we said. Witherden and Jai Cully Witherden, Jai Cully, and Luke Edwards being the ones without a contract at this stage. Let's be honest, I don't know if they're going to say. Who knows? They're probably on the outer, but again, they don't really have a lot of depth players, so who really knows? And Jake Waterman's been the one who's been looked around.
They need to keep him somehow.
Yeah, somehow, just keep him. And in 3 years' time, him and Oscar Allen are going to be the best duo forwards in the comp. I think.
Call it now.
Well, I think they're going to be one of the most dangerous ones. Like even this year, even though West Coast sucked for a lot of it, those 2 were really good.
He did get all Australian.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Oscar Allen, I think he's better than Jake Waterman. So I think, those 2 they need to stay. Anyway, looking at players that could be arriving, Liam Bacon, Jack Graham obviously have requested moves there. Riley Garcia's been looked around as a potential option at West Coast because he is Western Australian. Matt Owies as well has been looked at. Jack Carroll, James Peatling, and Devin Robertson. So there's a lot of players that could potentially go to West Coast in the off-season. So I don't think it is all doom and gloom, but again, they need to build out their depth. Their only 3 picks in the draft are pick 3, 23, and 59. So they need to build out their depth here, West Coast. They can't... Because the thing is, you can have a good stack of 15 players, but if you don't have depth and you get 3 injuries, which we've seen in previous years for West Coast, they're going to be irrelevant.
Yeah.
So, and then the last club, finally, we get to the Western Bulldogs. Bailey Smith. Can we just admit that why has he not came out and said he's going to go to Geelong? Is there something in the contract that Cotton On aren't letting off? Are they you have to do weird fireman calendars and he's not willing to do it? It's why is he not requested a Geelong yet? They're not offering enough for the shirtless picks, obviously. They're he wants more money he wants more sponsored posts on Instagram. I think that's what it is. That's what the thing is. Jack McRae's obviously requested a trade to move. Caleb Daniel probably going to move, I think, at the end of the year. North Melbourne's obviously the favourite. Intrigue still remains around Rory Lobb. I mean, this guy was basically not even anywhere near the team like at the start of the year.
Well,
now
could
he's
you
like one
look
of the best defenders that people are talking
Well,
about.
you could look at it if on the you could, because you can play him anywhere you want, really. Like you can play him, as we saw. With
Yeah, but I mean,
defense,
would you want to play him forward? I mean, he hasn't done very
You
well.
never know. He might have you just need some bit of confidence, and you never know. But I think that if you're going to do it, you need to know that you're going to play him there. And not like Port Adelaide and be like, oh, Salvatore Alagalia plays defense in the VFL. He'd be great in the AFL team.
Yeah. What do you think Port Adelaide should go look at Royal Lob?
No, because I think like I said, I think we did that role with Asava.
Yeah. So looking at players potentially arriving at the Dogs, Tom Barrass was missed out by them, which is a pretty big one because I think they do need to fill up that defensive area. Adam Tomlinson, I think would be a good idea. There's one who's been linked. James Peatling's just been named to everyone. Everyone is involved in him. And then that's basically it for the Western Bulldogs. So looking at it right now, that's basically all the trade targets for every single club. Let us know down below, guys, what players you guys want to get to your team in the off-season. I think that the worst thing Sydney can do, by the way, is not do anything in this trade period and just sit on their hands. I think that's something I hate when clubs do that.
As long as they get Jack Stringer, they'll be alright.
Fuck me. I hope he doesn't go to the Swans. Anyway, thank you guys. That's basically all we have for the podcast this week. We were going to do a World Sports segment, but we kind of ran out of time. We've been on it for over an hour now. Chelsea won, go me. Falcons won, go me. So look, at this point, thank fuck they won, or else I would have been on the fucking... I would have been off a bridge at this point. I've had a pretty fucking shit weekend.
And Liverpool's on top of the Prem.
Yeah. What's it, match week 5? I mean, it's basically locked up, guys.
Yeah.
That's basically what the punters are saying. Anyway, guys, thank you for listening to this episode of the Bandit Riders podcast, episode 84. And also, just quickly, we will be going throughout the whole off season, going into next year as well. So don't you worry. You will have your hour of podcast every single week in your ears. Be excited for that. Make sure to join the membership because we are just so good and we deserve it. Thank you for all your support over this season as well, guys. We really do appreciate it. I did say it in the review, but thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate all the love, guys.
Oh, God,
yeah,
guys.
I know.
Aren't you guys spoiled? Jesus Christ. He doesn't even say he loves half his family. So Jesus Christ. Anyway, looking at it, guys, that's pretty much it we have today. So make sure to like on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. Over 2,000 subs at the end of the season. Absolutely crazy. So make sure to do that. And of course, if you are on Spotify, make sure to like. You can't like on Spotify. You can leave us 5 stars, though. I see there's fucking people listening and you don't do it. So fucking do it. Leave us 5 stars so we can grow a bit more. And make sure to follow as well so you're notified on the podcast every single week, guys. That's all from us for this episode. So we'll catch you all next week.
See you later, guys.